Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're getting started just a little bit early, so as you are joining, please hang tight. We're going to wait about a minute or two for everybody to pop on the session, and then we will get started with the intro to pop-up shops. Thanks so much for joining. So for those of you who are just joining, we're going to hang tight for about another minute or two, just give everybody time to begin today's webinar. We're going to be doing an intro to Common SKUs pop-up shops. So this is perfect for beginners who haven't created a pop-up shop before. This is also good for those of you who are a little bit more used to pop-up shops. We'll be talking about some of the new features and a little bit more advanced settings that you can use with your shops as well. All right, so as everyone is joining in, I will mention, if you worked with me before, you know that I like to do quite a bit of talking. Today is going to be no exception. We've got a lot of content to cover. So if you have any questions right off the bat, feel free to add them to the Q&A panel. We'll be getting back to you at the end of the webinar so we can go over anything that's come up. All right, we're about a minute in, so I think this is a good time to get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Bree. I'm part of the customer success team over here at Common SKU, and I will be guiding you through today's intro to Common SKU's pop-up shops. Now, of course, the session is being recorded. We're going to be uploading a copy of the recording to the community events button. So you'll be able to find a recording in there if you have any team members who aren't able to make it, or if you would like to watch this again later. Now, if you have any questions come up as I'm going along, please feel free to add them to the Q&A panel of the webinar. We'll be able to get back to you after today's session. If you're watching this recording, of course, you can reach us just by contacting support directly, either by clicking on your profile icon and reaching out to support through there, or sending us an email at support@commonsku.com, whatever you prefer. All right. So we have got plenty of content to cover, and I'm just going to start with a little bit about what pop-up shops are, kind of how these really work. After that, we'll take a look at an actual pop-up shop. So we're going to put our client hat on and see what they would be going through. We'll then walk through the order processing, back-end settings, and we will be wrapping up with a special guest as well. So I'm actually going to be a little bit more brief this time because I want to leave plenty of room for our guest at the end of the session. They have got a lot of wisdom they're going to be sharing. All right, so first off, what is a pop-up shop? So I'm just beginning in the Shops tab. I'm going to click to create a shop from here, and our center option is those pop-ups. Well, pop-up shops are created for a particular client. So you're usually making this for a single company. And the idea with a pop-up shop is that you can have a bunch of shoppers come in here and place orders. These shoppers could be patrons, they could be employees, they could be members of a gym, for example. So lots of different use cases there. Now, as the different shoppers are coming in and placing their orders, we're going to be able to combine all of these shop orders into a single sales order inside of Common SKU. So this is perfect if your client is paying for all of those orders. So in the example of employee gifts, your client is going to be putting the bill for that. That's going to give them that grand total. This is also perfect for your suppliers. If you have 5,000 individual orders, they probably don't want 5,000 individual purchase orders. You're going to be able to bulk this together and give them those POs that they need. So pop-up shops are the go-to anytime that you are thinking about combining orders. They are the only shop that gives you that capability. So that does make them very unique. Now let's take a look at the client-facing view of a pop-up shop. So we're actually going to begin with that. I'm going to open my shop right here. And right away, you're going to notice that we actually need a password to get in. So you can password protect all of your shops. This isn't unique to pop-ups, but if you do have a certain shopping group and you want more exclusive access, they will require a password. Once your shopper types that out, they'll be able to enter, and then they'll see what you've made available. Now, before we dive into the actual products, which is of course why we're here, I do want to talk about some of the features of this particular pop-up shop. There's some new features that I would like to highlight. So one of those is this new design or new theme. For those of you who are more familiar with Common SKU shops, you might recall we announced this just a couple weeks ago. This is our categories and carousel theme. It allows us to have a carousel of images going across the top here. I've chosen to actually automate that, so the slide is going. You could also have it just so that the shopper is able to use that little toggle and they can flip back and forth between what you've made available. So that is the carousel portion. We also have these product categories, which are really those product titles, but it has taken them and created easy to access categories straight from this landing page. Your shopper is able to click into those categories to view the products. You'll notice when I hovered over a couple of these categories, we're also seeing a secondary image. So another unique feature that you have with this theme, you can add 2 images to each of the categories, just making it a little bit more interactive when the shopper hovers over. Now, another new feature to showcase, again, not exclusive to pop-up shops, is of course the chatbot. You do have the option to add chatbots to your shops now, and this is going to give your shopper a way to connect with you directly inside the shop. Now, all they have to do is click that little chat bot and they can start a conversation. Of course, it knows that I'm actually part of Vandalay Promotions in this case. I can't talk with myself, but your shopper would be able to enter their email address, enter their note or question, whatever it may be, and then that will start a chat session with you or whatever reps you have assigned. All right, so those are just some general settings, again, applicable to all of your shops. Now let's dive into what makes pop-up shops unique. Now I'm actually going to click into one of the categories here, and that's going to take us directly to those products. So let's click into the men's clothing, for example. Now you'll notice at the very top, we have those standard titles. It's taken us to men's clothing because that's what we selected at the beginning. You can also toggle into these other titles as well so that your shoppers can see the other options available. Now, when we are presenting the products, I do want to highlight that, of course, these are branded items. So typically when you're making pop-up shops, you're going to go ahead and get branded images in here. Just makes it that much more personal for the shoppers. They can also see what that artwork is going to look like on the items. Another thing to highlight with pop-up shops is that when we're looking at the products, we are seeing a single price point. You'll notice we're not seeing a range at all. So for example, this shirt is $10. They can purchase one, they can purchase 100, it is $10. Now, when the shopper clicks into the products, they'll see whatever information you've made available. With all of your shops, you can upload multiple product images so they can see their different choices. And much like presentations with all of the shops, shoppers can toggle between the items in this view. They've got a little play button if they want to watch a slideshow, or they can just click into that shop to see everything you've made available. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually start adding some products to my order. So let's go with the pullover windbreaker here. We'll click to add that. They can choose from the different variants you've made available. So in this case, it's one color, but we've got different sizes to select from. Now from there, they can keep shopping and add different items to their order, or they can click to checkout. I do want to highlight, if we are looking at the bottom here, this order total currently excludes any shipping, freight, or taxes. So when they're looking at this, it's really the subtotal of the order. Once we go to the checkout screen, we're then going to see that total that's due. So we'll get there in just one moment. One more unique thing that I would like to highlight with pop-up shops is that you can also use coupon codes. So I'm just going to go back to the home screen really quickly. You may have noticed, but in the carousel images here, I'm saying if you use the code free shipping, you can get $0 on shipping as well. So however you want to communicate that promotion to your shoppers, in this case, I've actually used that image to do so. They are able to redeem the coupon and get that discount. So let's actually go ahead. Maybe we'll add one more item to the order. So we'll get some leggings as well. And once we have everything, we'll click to checkout. Now, if we look at the left-hand side of the checkout screen, we're going to require their name and their email so you know who's making the purchase. Below that, you can also add custom questions to your pop-up shops. These are questions that the shopper has to answer before they actually check out. You have the ability to make these mandatory. So if they click to pay by credit card or submit their order, it's going to let them know what is required before they are fully able to check out. Now, I also want to highlight, when we are looking at the total here, you are able to include charges such as shipping. You could also include taxes as well. We're going to talk more about the tax settings when we look at the back end of the shop. But in my case, I've actually included taxes into that retail price so they can see a flat price point. Now, at this point, they can enter their coupon code, get that discount, and you do have the option to allow them to actually pay by credit card. If you would like to have the pay by credit card option, you would need to be using one of our integrations. So that is either with Stripe or Card Connect. It allows them to make that payment, goes through the integration directly to your bank account. Another option is that this can simply say submit order. So you don't have to take payment from the shopper. And depending on the nature of the shop, they might just be submitting the order, which you can then process and charge to your client afterwards. So let's take a look at what happens once your shoppers begin placing their orders. We're going to begin by talking about that order process. So who gets notified, what happens inside commonsku. We're then going to go ahead and actually work inside of a sales order. So what does that resulting order look like? And what happens to the information that the shopper entered? After that, we are going to come back and talk about some of the back-end settings that you can do in your pop-up shop. Again, focusing on features that makes this unique. I covered a couple of the settings in that client view, but there's a lot that we didn't get to as well. So we'll touch on those. So let's just begin with what happens next. After your shopper pays by credit card or submits their order, of course, that shopper is going to get an email notification with their receipt. You can also choose who gets notified through commonsku. We'll talk about that when we get to the settings. Now, those online orders are going to come into the shop's orders tab, and they tier into this checkouts area. This will show you all of the checkouts that were created through the shop. So that's a new term we're going to introduce here. The shop orders are called checkouts. So I can see details on who ordered what. I can look at this information individually. If I click on the hyperlinked reference number, it actually gives me a preview of this person's receipt. So I can see what it is that they ordered. Now, a couple reasons you might want to look at this preview. One is purely for reference. The other is you can actually print this up. Some teams do use these as packing slips because it is nice and personalized, and it just confirms what your shopper ordered as well. Once you're reviewing the preview, you can just click to print. I'm doing Control P from my keyboard. I could say this is a PDF, or I could print right away. So whether you're printing it up or if you're going to be sending these over to a fulfillment center. Now, going back to this checkouts tab, if I want to view the broad checkout details, so not looking one-on-one, I can actually select all the checkouts from this area, and I can click to view the checkout information. This breaks things out line item per line item. So who ordered what is the quantity, pricing, and then of course, what are those answers to the custom questions? This does come in from time to time. Some users will wonder what happened to those custom questions. How do I get those answers? Or in this case, the address details. Well, those are available from the checkouts. Now, not only can you click to view the checkouts, you can also export the checkouts as a CSV file. A couple reasons you might want to do that. In my example, I'm actually shipping the products to the shoppers directly. So I want to export the checkout so that I can get all of their addresses. I would pass that over to whoever is processing the orders. Another reason you might export is if you're shipping to a single location. So in my case, this was created for a gym. Let's say we're shipping to the gym and they're handing things out to their patrons. Well, in that case, we would want to give them a copy of the checkouts again so that they know who ordered what. They can divvy things out accordingly. Now, ultimately, we're going to take these checkouts and we're actually going to create a sales order for them. When you click to create a project, you'll just give it a project name, and that will move it from the checkouts tab straight over to the orders tab. I'm going to click into a sales order that I've got here. So if we go into the sales order, it's going to pull any of the details that you had entered from the back-end shop settings. This would include things like tax, billing and shipping address. You're going to notice mine is empty, and that's the use case that I've used for this shop, again, because I am shipping to the shopper's locations. If you were shipping to a designated address, though, you can plug this in the shop settings, which we will look at very soon. Now, looking at the products, it does combine all of the items into single line items here. So just because you've got 1,000 checkouts doesn't mean you're going to have 1,000 lines. It actually combines those products together, taking over whatever you had entered within the shop. Now you can also add shipping charges to those shops as we saw in the checkout screen. It will then aggregate the shipping in this area. As far as the checkout detail, who ordered what, you can click into the checkouts tab and you still have access to this information with the same abilities. You can view them, you can export the CSV file, or you can click on that reference number if you want to see the copy of what the shopper had ordered. So again, printing these up, using them as packing slips. Now, the next steps really depend on the nature of the order. There are so many different ways that you can use pop-up shops. In my example, I've already taken payment from all the shoppers, so this is settled up. I might just move it into production right away. But of course, if your client was going to be paying for this, maybe you're going to take the order and send it out for their formal approval. Maybe there's some additional products or charges you'd like to add here. You can still make changes to the sales order as needed. Now, another thing you can do is, of course, take the sales order and turn it into an invoice right away. These are all different options depending on that order process you plan to follow. It is a good idea to discuss these types of things with your client before you even begin creating the shop. So ultimately, who's paying for it? How do you plan to process the order? That's going to influence the steps that you're doing in this area. Now let's take a look at the back end settings of a pop-up shop. So just beginning inside of the settings tab, inside the general settings area. This is of course where we are giving things such as the shop name and its status. Shops are open when they're open. Anybody's able to go in and make purchases. Once your shop is completed, so maybe the fitness facility is done selling their merch, we can just change this to close. That will prevent people from making any further orders. As usual in Common SKU, we've got our client rep and order rep, but we also have the shop contact. The shop contact is going to be the point of contact inside the shop. So if the shopper has any questions, this is the person they can direct them to. Now, billing and shipping details would be plugged in here, of course, if those are applicable. And a couple other things that we can do, such as enabling that chat bot. Chatbots are created through the chat area. Unfortunately, we don't have time to cover that today, but I will show some support resources if you're interested. Once you've created your chatbot, you can add them through here. We can also decide who gets an email notification when a checkout occurs. So I mentioned that the shopper will get an email with their receipt. You can also decide if you would like others to get an email. This includes the order rep, the shop contact, or the client rep. This is a new feature that we've added to pop-up shops. So for those of you who wanted to get emails, you now can. Just choose which rep or contact should get the notification. Another new update is the ability to enforce minimum quantities on pop-up shops. I didn't do that in the scenario I demonstrated because if they order one, that is enough. But depending on the nature of the shop, sometimes you may want to enforce a minimum quantity. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Now, other settings include shipping charges, which is based on the subtotal of the order. So we're just defining the different ranges here and adding a charge. We then have our tax settings. One of the options being tax included. Tax included means that you have accounted for the tax inside of the retail price, whatever you're charging the shopper. You can also have it be tax exempt, or you can use the appropriate tax code. So whatever applies to your order. We have the credit card checkout, which of course is optional. They can either pay by credit card or simply submit. We also have those custom checkout questions. You can make them an open text field or a select field. One thing that we didn't cover in the shop I demoed is a checkout limit, but you actually can set a spend amount on what the shoppers are able to purchase. This checkout limit is helpful in the event that your client is paying for the orders. They might only be covering, let's say, $100 per employee. Now, finally, we have the checkout message. That is the message that would appear when your shopper has completed the order. So I didn't actually pay by credit card in my shop, but if I had, they would have got a little checkout message. This is a great place to put next steps so they know what to expect. Now, finally, we have the coupons. So again, you can create coupons inside this area that can be a dollar or % discount. There's also a description. This description is not client-facing or not shopper-facing, rather. It is for your reference. So if you're offering coupons and there's a bit of an internal note you want to have for your team, you can add that in here. Now you can set dates that the coupons are active, dates that they expire. Really important, if you want a coupon to be active, make sure you actually turn it on. You might have noticed that I did not have a coupon in my demo, and that's because I forgot to make it active. So not intentional, but very good learning opportunity. Make sure if you want people to use coupons, you're allowing them to be available. Now, a couple other things you can do with coupons, such as setting valid email domains or single use per email. That just allows you to further restrict who's kind of making that purchase. If you have questions about those, please add them to the Q&A panel. We can cover it after. Now, a few more things to run through, and then I want to get to our special guest because they've got so much exciting experience with pop-up shops. I'm really looking forward to sharing their story. So let's just kind of breeze through the other shop settings. We'll talk support resources, and then I'll bring our guest on stage. So the next thing is the products. Very similar to adding products to your orders. If you click the Add Product button, you can source from the different databases. One database that is not available is the Sage integration. So if your team is using Sage, unfortunately, their products are not available inside shops. Not to worry though, you have alternatives, such as collections from all suppliers, collections from our especially connected suppliers, and then of course, Distributor Central, which is a free integrated search. Once you add products into your shop, you can edit them as normal. So just changing the information the client is seeing. A really important edit to ensure that you're doing with pop-ups is adding that retail price. So what are we charging the shopper? That retail price can actually be different than what you're charging your client. So you can use pop-up shops as a way to sell products on behalf of your client, kind of giving them a piece of the pie so they get some of the profit. Other unique settings with shops include the ability to add upcharges. These upcharges would flow to the order as well. It would also be payable by the shopper. Now, because we're using that categories and carousel theme, which we'll talk about in a second, when I added the different titles, so just hovering over a product, giving it a right click and inserting a title, I was actually able to add images to these titles as well. You can have up to 2 different images, and these are the images that appear when the shopper actually hovers over the image from their view. Now, going into the design, there are 4 different themes that you can choose from. This one has the categories and carousel theme. No matter which theme you are using, you can choose a product list style, so a grid or tile style. Grid puts everything into those square kind of boxes, whereas the tile style is more free form. You can choose your accent color for the shop here, and then depending on the shop that you're using, there's some different upload options. Or sorry, depending on the theme you're using, there's some different upload options. For the carousel, I'm adding images through here, choosing whether or not I want that auto scroll, fill banner, and then of course adding the categories as well. So a bunch of unique settings that come with this. I will show some support resources if you've got more questions when it comes to the design and the different theme choices. So that is a rather brief tour of pop-up shops. I've tried to hit on some of the main features here, but there is so much that you can do with them. So let's talk about support resources. So first and foremost, before we talk about support resources, let's talk about sending the shop out to your client. That part is probably important. So one of the ways, of course, is to email through commonsku. If you use the actions email shop, that opens the email screen. You can send this here. Typically, you would be sending it to a main point of contact, and then they can distribute on their end. That main point of contact ultimately just needs the shop link. That's the same link that you would see if you clicked to preview the shop. So actions, preview shop. As long as they have that live link, they'll be able to give it to their shoppers and then they can place their orders. Now I'm going to save other ways that you can distribute shops. I'm going to actually save those for our special guest. So let's touch on support resources and then we'll bring our guest on stage. So just heading to the shops tab, once you click to create shop at the very top, there is an option that says not sure what's right for your client, click here. If you actually click there, it will open up a shop's roadmap for you. This helps guide you to the best shop type based on what your client needs. You can also scroll to the very bottom and just click into a shop type for access to demo shops, all of our shop's resources, past webinars, and blog content. Now we also have help articles. So if you click your profile icon, you can head over to the help articles. We do have shop-specific help articles. So general resources as well as articles about each of the shops. If you head into the What's New section, that's where you can find additional details about the features like the categories and carousel theme or the shop's chatbot. Now, you can also click on that community event button, and that allows you to view past events. So some of the past events that I recommend watching, of course, are the webinar that we did on marketing shops, if you want to see what makes those unique. We also have our Intro to Common SKU shops for an overview. Now, last stop is going to be your Learn tab. The Learn tab is taking all of our different support resources and content, putting it in one easy area to find. You can find previous events where we have talked to other users about how shops work for them. So on that note, I do want to bring our guests to the stage so we can find out how they have experienced pop-up shops. Just give me one quick second. I am going to be bringing Tony McNally from Vanguard to the stage. So Tony, come on up. Hello, hello.
Hey, Bree, how's it going?
Oh, we'll give it a second. So I can't actually hear you, Tony. We're getting the lovely, happens with every Zoom session.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Sorry, Tony, I can't hear you. Let's just give it one quick second. Sorry, everyone. I think if you've seen my previous webinars, you know that I have trouble with audio sometimes as well. Oh, everybody else can hear them. Okay. Everybody but me. Well, this is really interesting. This has never happened before.
Plot twist.
Tony, I'm going to try muting you and unmuting you. Everybody, welcome to support. We're doing some troubleshooting. Give me 1 second. Okay, Tony, can you unmute yourself?
I can.
This is crazy. I actually cannot hear you, and I don't know why. I'm so sorry, Tony. What else could be causing this? Okay, Tony, I'm going to try to make you a host. Let's just see if that does anything.
Okay.
It's just not picking up. Oh my gosh, I can see he said, okay, I wish I was better at reading your lips. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, everybody. So everybody but me can hear him, and I'm the one who's supposed to be asking the questions. So this does complicate things ever so slightly. Maybe what we can do, and I apologize, everybody, is maybe Tony and I can just take our conversation offline. Yeah, thank you, Dustin. Okay, I'm going to try disconnecting my headset. Everybody give me 1 moment. I'm going to try to get my stuff together.
Thanks for the patience, everybody, while she's disconnecting her headset.
Okay, is my audio? My audio is working.
Can you hear me now?
Just keep talking. See if I can hear you eventually.
I think you'll eventually be able to hear me because you have a wonderful looking headset.
We are here. Oh my gosh. Thank you, everybody, for putting up with that. Thank you, Dustin, for the disconnect the headset idea. Tony, good to hear you.
Good to be heard.
Yeah.
Besides everybody else.
Yeah, I'm a little late to the game, but we are here. So let's dive right in. Thank you so much for bearing with me. So I know that you have a pretty exciting story about how your team used a pop-up shop for a hospital. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about what that was, kind of how that shop worked and what it was that your client was needing?
I can. We've actually delved into shops pretty frequently, but we have one specific client who reached out to us with the need to kind of increase engagement inside the hospital and to build some community rapport with not just the hospital, but people in the surrounding area. So they asked us to create a shop where the employees can go on, purchase swag, as you'd say, and to develop a logo. So we did. What we developed, in essence, was a brand for them, which the hospital was in Harlem. So we incorporated the logo and we put up products that the employees could buy. We started simply with hats, shirts, zip ups, and some jackets. That was the first shop. And to put it lightly, it really worked out. We went from that first shop to actually just closed our fifth.
You just closed, sorry.
We just closed our fifth shop with that client.
Okay, my audio is just not my friend today, but so very exciting. So I didn't realize that you also did the logo concept as well. If you don't mind me asking, how did you come up with the products to offer? Was that a discussion that you had with your client beforehand, or how did that kind of initial sales process, we'll call it, look?
It's one of our clients who we've had for a pretty long time. So we have a good idea of the culture and what needs they had inside the hospital. So for instance, we knew that a zip up hoodie would be a great choice because the nurses can easily throw it on when they're in the hospital instead of pulling something over the top. We knew t-shirts would be a no-brainer just because of the price point, with it being a shop that the end user really needs to go on and to buy something. We needed something at a low cost. And then from there, we kind of just looked at things that they felt the staff would use, as well as that they would allow them to wear as part of the uniform throughout the day.
That's really amazing. I love, like, not only is it swag, which is always great, but it's got the utility behind it too. So I like what you mentioned with the zip of the nurses actually being able to take that on and off kind of as needed throughout their shift. So that's amazing. And then was the shop for employees only, or was it open to the public as well? Who could purchase?
We did limit it to just employees. Employees were obviously encouraged to buy for their families, which they actually did in future shops. However, some of the limitations of shop development is the ability to drop ship to different locations outside of the hospital itself. Only because if you did open a pop-up shop to the general public, the request to deliver to different states or to different locations would create a challenge. However, what we did was we had it all delivered to the hospital. We used our warehouse to ease the delivery. We repackaged everything and kind of sorted it by order, and then delivered it for easy distribution once it was in the hospital.
So that's a really good point as well, and I'm glad that you brought it up. I demoed doing the drop shipments, which is of course really easy if you're shipping within a defined area. But then if you have instances where it's out of state or international too, that can present some other obstacles. So for the scenario you described, then you shipped it to the hospital and they distributed there. What did that distribution look like? I actually am curious. Did you print up that CSV file? Is that how you did it, or how did the people go about getting their order?
Yeah, so what we did was we exported the Excel file that you can from the shop. We had all of the individual products shipped to our warehouse. The warehouse then took the Excel file and created individual polybagged or boxed orders, depending on how much people ordered. Because people ordered from anything from one shirt to, we have people who ordered 10 of every product just so that they could have it. So what we did was we took those, we boxed them, we brought them as one distribution to the hospital. And then what they allowed us to do was when the shop was done, we had the email distribution list from that Excel file to create an email to send to the staff to say, just want to let you know, the orders are here. The orders can picked up on this specific day at this hospital, and made it extremely.
Okay, so you kind of channel, so it's not just everybody showing up at some time to pick up everything. By having those proactive communications, you made it easier, not just for you, but I'm sure for them as well. So actually, I'd love to dive into a couple things with that. And everybody, I know that we are a little bit over time, but it did take me a second to get my headset connected. So I hope you can all bear with us for a couple more minutes. So Tony, two-part question here. The first one is the first one is really around communication. So you mentioned communication, kind of post order, we'll call it, or post shop. I'm wondering if there's any communication beforehand and how that was handled. The other thing too, which I'll get to in a second, is those lovely minimums, because you mentioned people ordered a lot. So I'm curious how you had a minimum conversation. So you can dive in.
Yeah, so what was great is that they allowed us to develop the marketing for the shop itself. What we did is we developed a one-page PDF marketing flyer for them, where we introduced the shop to the employees. As you know, the URL that's developed for the shop isn't the most friendly. So what we did is we created a QR code on the flyer that they could either click as a hyperlink or scan with their phone to take them to the shop. And then they did that distribution in-house. They also printed a couple flyers and put them in key locations in the hospital. For instance, the elevators, the lunch, the cafeteria, and other areas like that. And then from there, the employees knew that they can go on and place their orders.
I mean, I don't think it's just a millennial thing, but when I see a QR code, like I personally get so excited and I just want to pull up my phone and kind of see what's going on with that too. So I love that you kind of took what is, not the most attractive hyperlink. It's just auto-generated with stuff. So I love that you took it and then turned it into, for me at least, that would be a super interactive experience. Not only would I be looking at this post or email, but then I get to bring up my phone and actually scan it too. So I can only imagine that added another layer for the would-be shoppers. So kind of leading to the second part of that question then, to do with minimums, because you want your client to hit a certain number. It sounds like you had shoppers purchasing above and beyond, but what did that conversation look like?
To be honest, it's just an honest conversation with the client, letting them know that the way the shop works is that once the orders are done, you're aggregating the orders and creating one purchase. They had the understanding that whatever minimums weren't hit, the hospital then cut a purchase order for whatever wasn't purchased. Luckily enough, 4 of the 5 shops that was not needed at all due to the popularity and the marketing effort, everybody was aware and placed the purchases. However, on some products, because we did get a little fun with it, we started to offer tumblers and lanyards and pens, some smaller ticket items for people to be able to purchase. But the ability to hit a 500-piece minimum on pens isn't really there. So what we did was we allowed them to cut their purchase order. They ordered the extra products, and then we stored it at our warehouse. And when the client needed products for a future event, they were able to go onto our platform and release those for future distribution. For that, we did have to go outside of the common SKU system, only because there really is no inventory platform. But we were able to come up with a solution for that.
I mean, I love it. I know we had a brief conversation before, and I've mentioned I'm a huge fan of how you took, what are obstacles. So whether it's an obstacle with the drop ship or the hyperlink or minimums, and then we're able to turn that around and actually turn it into a positive experience for everybody. So the combination of your proactivity, speaking with your client about things like minimums ahead of time, that marketing effort. So email blast, QR code, having the post-ups as well, and then still kind of the post-shop or post-op communication, as we call it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing kind of that story with us. I know if I'm excited, I can only imagine how everybody else is feeling since they're making. Of
course, thank you for letting me share it. I get so excited about shops and the ability to talk about how versatile they are. Yeah, I love it.
So I'm going to take this final opportunity to make a little bit of a plug. I have to do my shameless plug here because you mentioned inventory is lacking, and it definitely is lacking. We're looking at potentially at the end of next week, our inventory shop coming out of beta testing. I hope that my team is okay that I'm announcing this, so we'll find this potentially. So it's gone through some very thorough beta testing. Some people who are part of this webinar might have been part of that process. So thank you, everybody. We're going to be looking at an inventory solution in common SKUs. So we'll definitely have a follow-up webinar when that happens. But hopefully for you, Tony, that can help alleviate things in the orders, our future orders as well.
Absolutely. I'll come on another time and talk about how that worked as well.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time. And thank you everybody else for putting up with my technical difficulties. We do Zoom so often. If you've seen my other webinars, you're in for a treat each time. So I hope everyone has a fabulous day. Thank you again for your time, Tony. And if anybody needs anything, you can reach us at support. Bye.